CIET NCERT presents Audiobook of Science for Class 7 entitled Science. This is the lesson 12, Reproduction in Plants, from page 133 to page 142. Let's listen to the lesson 12, Reproduction in Plants. Page 133. To produce its kind is a characteristic of all living organisms. You have already learned this in class 6. The production of new individuals from their parents is known as reproduction. But how do plants reproduce? There are different modes of reproduction in plants, which we shall learn in this chapter. 12.1 Modes of Reproduction. In class 6, you learnt about different parts of a flowering plant. Try to list the various parts of a plant and write the functions of each. Most plants have roots, stems, and leaves. These are called the vegetative parts of a plant. After a certain period of growth, most plants bear flowers. You may have seen the mango trees flowering in spring. It is these flowers that give rise to juicy mango fruit we enjoy in summer. We eat the fruits and usually discard the seeds. Seeds germinate and form new plants. So, what is the function of flowers in plants? Flowers perform the function of reproduction in plants. Flowers are the reproductive parts. There are several ways by which plants produce their offspring. These are categorized into two types. 1. Asexual and 2. Sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, plants can give rise to new plants without seeds, whereas in sexual reproduction, new plants are obtained from seeds. There's a thought bubble given here. A picture of Paheli is next to it. Paheli thought that new plants always grow from seeds, but she has never seen the seeds of sugarcane, potato, and rose. She wants to know how these plants reproduce. Asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, new plants are obtained without production of seeds. Vegetative propagation. It is a type of asexual reproduction in which new plants are produced from roots, stems, leaves, and buds. Since reproduction is through the vegetative parts of the plant, it is known as vegetative propagation. Activity 12.1. Cut a branch of rose or champa with a node. This piece of branch is termed a cutting. Bury the cutting in the soil. A node is a part of the stem or branch at which a leaf arises. You can observe this in figure 12.1. Water the cutting every day and observe its growth. Observe and record the number of days taken for roots to come out and new leaves to arise. Page 134. Try the same activity by growing money plant in a jar of water and record your observations. Figure 12.1. Stem cutting of rose. Here we can observe a stem. On the stem there is node. On close observation we can also observe bud in the axil. You must have seen flower buds developing into flowers. Apart from flower buds, there are buds in the axil of leaves which develop into shoots. An axil is the point of attachment of the leaf at the node. These buds are called vegetative buds. You can observe them in figure 12.2. A bud consists of a short stem around which immature overlapping leaves are present. Vegetative buds can also give rise to new plants. Activity 12.2. Take a fresh potato. Observe the scars on it with the help of a magnifying glass. You may find bud or buds in them. These scars are called eyes. Cut the potato into small portions, each with an eye, and bury them in the soil. Water the pieces regularly for a few days and observe their progress. What do you find? Figure 12.2. Potato plant sprouting from an eye. Here we can observe multiple potatoes. Potato plant sprouting from eye can also be observed. Likewise, you can also grow ginger or turmeric. You can observe this in figure 12.3. Bryophyllum or sprout leaf plant has buds in the margins of leaves. You can observe this in figure 12.4. If a leaf of this plant falls on a moist soil, each bud can give rise to a new plant. Figure 12.3. Ginger with new plants sprouting from it. Roots of some plants can also give rise to new plants. Sweet potato and dahlia are examples. Plants such as cacti produce new plants when their parts get detached from the main plant body. Each detached part can grow into a new plant. Figure 12.4. Leaf of Bryophyllum with buds in the margin. Here we can observe a leaf. New plants can be observed growing on it. Page 135. There's a thought bubble given here. A picture of Bojo is next to it. Bojo wants to know if there is any advantage of vegetative propagation. Plants produced by vegetative propagation take less time to grow and bear flowers and fruits earlier than those produced from seeds. The new plants are exact copies of the parent plant as they are produced from a single parent. Later in this chapter, you will learn that plants produced by sexual reproduction have characters of both the parents. Plants produce seeds as a result of sexual reproduction. Budding. You have already learned about the tiny organisms like yeast can be seen only under a microscope. These grow and multiply every few hours if sufficient nutrients are made available to them. Remember that yeast is a single-celled organism. Let us learn how they reproduce. Activity 12.3. To be demonstrated by the teacher. Take a piece of yeast cake or yeast powder from a bakery or a chemist shop. Take a pinch of yeast and place it in a container with some water. Add a spoonful of sugar and shake to dissolve it. Keep it in the warm part of a room. After an hour, put a drop of this liquid on a glass slide and observe under a microscope. What do you observe? You may observe formation of new yeast cells. Figure 12.5. Reproduction in yeast by budding. Here we can observe a yeast cell. Then it starts changing its form and we can observe a developing bud. This developing bud in the next step becomes a new bud. Then, in the final step, we can observe a chain of buds which have evolved from the original yeast cell. The small bulb-like projection coming out from the yeast cell is called a bud. The bud gradually grows and gets detached from the parent cell and forms a new yeast cell. The new yeast cell grows, matures, and produces more yeast cells. Sometimes another bud arises from the bud, forming a chain of buds. If this process continues, a large number of yeast cells are produced in a short time. Fragmentation. You might have seen slimy green patches in ponds or in other stagnant water bodies. These are the algae. When water and nutrients are available, algae grow and multiply rapidly by fragmentation. Page 136. An alga breaks up into two or more fragments. These fragments or pieces grow into new individuals. You can observe this in figure 12.6. This process continues and they cover a large area in a short period of time. Figure 12.6, fragmentation in Spirogyra or an alga. Here we can observe that the process of fragmentation has taken place and a division of two parts has happened in alga. Spore formation. In chapter 1, you learned that the fungi on a bread piece grow from spores which are present in the air. Repeat activity 1.2. Observe the spores in the cotton-like mesh on the bread. When spores are released, they keep floating in the air. As they are very light, they can cover long distances. Spores are asexual reproductive bodies. Each spore is covered by a hard protective coat to withstand unfavorable conditions such as high temperature and low humidity, so they can survive for a long time. Under favorable conditions, a spore germinates and develops into a new individual. Plants such as moss and ferns also reproduce by means of spores. You can observe this in figure 12.8. Figure 12.7. Reproduction through spore formation in fungus. Here we can observe a circular ball. This is the sporangium. It is connected to the hypha. Inside the sporangium, we can observe lots of spores. 12.2. Sexual reproduction. You have learnt earlier the structure of a flower. You know that the flowers are the reproductive parts of a plant. Stamens are the male reproductive part and pistil is the female reproductive part. You can observe this in figure 12.9. Page 137. Activity 12.4. Take a mustard or China rose or petunia flower and separate its reproductive parts. Study the various parts of a stamen and pistil. Flowers which contain either only pistil or only stamens are called unisexual flowers. Flowers which contain both stamens and pistil are called bisexual flowers. Corn, papaya, and cucumber produce unisexual flowers, whereas mustard, rose, and petunia have bisexual flowers. Both male and female unisexual flowers may be present in the same plant or in different plants. Figure 12.9 Reproductive Parts. A. Stamen. At the top of stamen is the anther. The anther is connected by a green tube-like structure which is filament. B. Pistil. At the top of pistil is the stigma. It is connected to the ovary with the help of style. Within the ovary, we can observe the ovule. There are small circular dots on the ovule. Could you identify the anther and the filament of a stamen? You can observe them in figure 12.9a. Another contains pollen grains which produce male gametes. A pistil consists of stigma, style, and ovary. Ovary contains one or more ovules. The female gamete or the egg is formed in an ovule. You can observe this in figure 12.9b. In sexual reproduction, a male and a female gamete fuse to form zygote. There's a thought bubble given here. A picture of Bojo is next to it. Bojo wants to know how the male gamete in the pollen grain reaches the female gamete present in the ovule. Pollination. Generally, pollen grains have a tough protective coat which prevents them from drying up. Since pollen grains are light, they can be carried by wind or water. Figure 12.10 Pollination in flower. A. Self-pollination. Here we can observe a flower. On the flower there is anther and stigma. The pollens transfer from the anther to the stigma. B. Cross-pollination. This flower also has anther and stigma. The pollen from the first flower transfers to the stigma of this flower. Page 138. There's a thought bubble given here. Bojo wants to know why flowers are generally so colorful and fragrant. Is it to attract insects? Insects visit flowers and carry away pollen on their bodies. Some of the pollen lands on the stigma of a flower of the same kind. The transfer of pollen from the another to the stigma of a flower is called pollination. If the pollen lands on the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant, it is called self-pollination. When the pollen of a flower lands on the stigma of a flower of a different plant of the same kind, it is called cross-pollination. You can observe both of these in figure 12.10a and b. Fertilization. The cell which results after fusion of the gametes is called a zygote. The process of fusion of male and female gametes to form zygote. Figure 12.10a and b. Fertilization. The cell which results after fusion of the gametes is called a zygote. The process of fusion of male and female gametes to form zygote is called fertilization. You can observe this in figure 12.11. The zygote develops into an embryo. Figure 12.11 Fertilization or zygote formation. A. Here we can observe a stigma. Within the stigma is a small dot of black color. This is ovum. At the top of stigma, pollen grain germinating can be observed. B. Here we can observe the process of zygote formation. The zygote, which was a small black dot in the first image, can be now observed multiplying. The pollen tube connected to the ovum can also be observed. Figure 12.12 A. Section of an apple. B. Almond. 12.3 Fruits and seed formation. After fertilization, the ovary grows into a fruit and other parts of the flower fall off. The fruit is the ripened ovary. The seeds develop from the ovules. The seed contains an embryo enclosed in a protective seed coat. Some fruits are fleshy and juicy, such as mango and orange. Some fruits are hard, like almonds and walnuts. You can observe these in figure 12.12 A and B. 12.4 Seed dispersal. In nature, same kind of plants grow at different places. This happens because seeds are dispersed to different places. Sometimes, after a walk through a forest or a field or a park, you may have found seeds of fruits sticking to your clothes. Page 139. Did you try to observe how these seeds were clinging to your clothes? What do you think will happen if all seeds of a plant were to fall at the same place and grow there? There would be severe competition for sunlight, water, minerals, and space. As a result, the seeds would not grow into healthy plants. Plants benefit by seed dispersal. It prevents competition between the plant and its own seedlings for sunlight, water, and minerals. It also enables the plants to invade new habitats for wider distribution. Seeds and fruits of plants are carried away by wind, water, and animals. Winged seeds, such as those of drumstick and maple, which can be observed in figure 12.13 A and B. Light seeds of grasses or hairy seeds of ack or madar, and hairy fruit of sunflower, which can be observed in figure 12.14 A and B, get blown off with the wind to faraway places. Some seeds are dispersed by water. These fruits or seeds usually develop floating ability in the form of spongy or fibrous outer coat, as in coconut. Some seeds are dispersed by animals, especially spiny seeds with hooks, which get attached to the bodies of animals and are carried to different places. Examples are xanthium and urina. You can observe xanthium in figure 12.15. Some seeds are dispersed when the fruit bursts with sudden jerks. The seeds are scattered far from the parent plant. This happens in the case of castor and balsam. 12.13 Seeds of A. drumstick and B. maple. We can observe the seed in the center of drumstick and at the top of the maple. The seed is surrounded by wing in the drumstick. The wing is protruding out of the seed in the case of maple. 12.14 A. The hairy fruit of sunflower, and B. The hairy seed of madar or ark. Figure 12.15 Xanthium. Page 140. Keywords: asexual reproduction, budding, embryo, fertilization, fragmentation, gametes, hypha, ovule, pollen grain, pollen tube, pollination, seed dispersal, sexual reproduction, spore, sporangium, vegetative propagation, zygote. What you have learned. 1. All organisms multiply or produce their own kind. 2. In plants, there are two modes of reproduction, asexual and sexual. 3. There are several methods of asexual reproduction, such as fragmentation, budding, spore formation, and vegetative propagation. 4. Sexual reproduction involves the fusion of male and female gametes. 5. In vegetative propagation, new plants are produced from different vegetative parts such as leaves, stems, and roots. 6. Flower is the reproductive part of a plant. 7. A flower may be unisexual with either the male or the female reproductive parts. 8. A bisexual flower has both the male and the female reproductive parts. 9. The male gametes are found inside the pollen grains and female gametes are found in the ovule. 10. Pollination is the process of transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of the same or another flower. 11. Pollination is of two types, self-pollination and cross-pollination. In self-pollination, pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. In cross-pollination, pollen grains are transferred from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same kind. 12. Pollination takes place in plants with the help of wind, water, and insects. 13. The fusion of male and female gametes is called fertilization. 14. Fertilized egg is called zygote. Zygote develops into an embryo. 15. Fruit is the mature ovary, whereas ovule develops into a seed, which contains the developing embryo. 16. Seed dispersal is aided by wind, water, and animals. 17. Seed dispersal helps the plants to 1. Prevent overcrowding, 2. Avoid competition for sunlight, water, and minerals, and 3. Invade new habitats. Page 141. Exercises. 1. Fill in the blanks. A. Production of new individuals from the vegetative part of parent is called blank. B. A flower may have either male or female reproductive parts. Such a flower is called blank. C. The transfer of pollen grains from The anther. 2. The stigma of the same or of another flower of the same kind is known as blank. D. The fusion of male and female gametes is termed as blank. E. Seed dispersal takes place by means of blank, blank, and blank. 2. Describe the different methods of asexual reproduction. Give examples. 3. Explain what you understand by sexual reproduction. 4. State the main difference between asexual and sexual reproduction. 5. Sketch the reproductive parts of a flower. 6. Explain the difference between self-pollination and cross-pollination. 7. How does the process of fertilization take place in flowers? 8. Describe the various ways by which seeds are dispersed. 9. Match items in column 1 with those in column 2. Column 1. A. Bud. B. Eyes. C. Fragmentation. D. Wings. E. Spores. Column 2. 1. Maple. 2. Spirogyra. 3. Yeast. 4. Bread mold. 5. Potato. 6. Rose. 10. Tick the correct answer. A. The reproductive part of a plant is the 1. Leaf. 2. Stem. 3. Root. 4. Flower. B. The process of fusion of the male and female gametes is called 1. Fertilization. 2. Pollination. 3. Reproduction. 4. Seed formation. Page 142. C. Mature ovary forms the 1. Seed. 2. Stamen. 3. Pistil. 4. Fruit. D. A spore-producing organism is 1. Rose. 2. Bread mold. 3. Potato. 4. Ginger. E. Bryophyllum can reproduce by its 1. Stem. 2. Leaves. 3. Roots. 4. Flower. Extended learning, activities and projects. 1. Make your own cactus garden by collecting pieces cut from different kinds of cacti. Grow the variety in one single flat container or in separate pots. 2. Visit a fruit market and collect as many local fruits as possible. If many fruits are not available, you can collect tomatoes and cucumbers. These are fruits, though we use them as vegetables. Make drawings of the different fruits. Split the fruits and examine the seeds within. Look for any special characteristics in the fruits and their seeds. You can visit a library also to learn about this. 3. Think of 10 different fruit-bearing plants. Remember that many vegetables are also fruits of the plants. Discuss with your teacher, parents, farmers, fruit growers, and agricultural experts, if available nearby, and find out the manner of their dispersal. Present your data in the form of a table. A sample table has been given here. In this table, there are 4 columns and 3 rows. In the first column, we have serial number. In the second column, you have to write name of fruit-bearing plant. In the third column, you have to write agent through which seeds are dispersed. In the fourth column, you have to write part of or seed which helps in dispersal. 4. Suppose there is one member of a particular kind of organism in a culture dish, which doubles itself in 1 hour through asexual reproduction. Work out the number of members of that kind of organism which will be present in the culture dish after 10 hours. Such a colony of individuals arising from one parent is called a clone. The chapter 12 of total 18 chapters of the book ends here.